Doomsday scenario.
Hello there, kia ora. It's the Doomsday scenario in many ways for a National Party Prime Minister. The idea of losing their most influential mouthpiece, a man who even found a way to side with John Key when it was revealed that he'd been pulling ponytails of waitstaff at a cafe. Is it any wonder that the Prime Minister was quick to jump on a plane to Vietnam, where he'll be under a bit less scrutiny for his interview, where he struggled to say that he would have fired Andrew Bailey if he hadn't resigned on Friday? Or maybe his handling of the event could have been faster, or kept the public more aware of what changes were happening. Instead, even with Mike Hosking giving him the most basic of prompts like, "So would you have fired him if he didn't quit?" the Prime Minister spouted corporate jargon and spoke in circles with his "what I say to you is" isms and "let me be very clear" without actually answering the questions, asked multiple times, for 3 minutes. It was so bad, it flustered Hosking, a man who wasn't even flustered when Cyclone Gabrielle bore down on the country, causing widespread destruction and loss, claiming it was just like a really windy day in Wellington. And just in case you're a little concerned that Mike might be going woke in his old age, other topics he's covered in his opinion piece videos this month, Mike's Minute, which is clearly labelled as his opinions despite what multitudes of his listeners seem to think. They include a lament on the waste that is the public service, how David Seymour trying to drive a Land Rover up Parliament steps despite being told twice that he wasn't allowed to wasn't such a bad thing, shock that a union was right about anything, banks should stop being woke when it comes to climate change, foreign buyers are good, and Donald Trump is crazy. Crazy good, that is. And the issue here isn't just that the Prime Minister had a bad interview with the most listened to pro-national media personality in the country. It's that he was called out for being unpopular, for tanking in the polls, for being ineffective in the role by a man who does, for all his faults and clear bias, command an impressive audience of people who still listen to linear broadcast radio and think kids have it too easy these days. On the back of a situation with an MP which was managed kinda poorly, after a month that included 2 really awful polls for National that would see them out of power if a snap election happened, being overshadowed by the current acting Prime Minister numerous times, a visible rise in misogyny from men in his coalition, racism from his coalition partners, in a country where, despite claims he was all about the laser focus on the cost of living, newspapers are running stories like this about why we, as a dairy-producing country, have to suck up the fact that as consumers the price of cheese is skyrocketing, along with rates, rents, power, water supplies, and fuel costs. We're seeing record levels of people leaving, record levels of unemployment rises, our tamariki are having to deal with goop being fed to them in schools, and those in state care seeing a rise in abuse cases. A man reviled by the majority of New Zealanders for his calls to violence and targeting marginalised communities is out there celebrating this government's new citizens' arrest powers announced yesterday, and public servants are leaving the ship at record rates. So sure, it's a doomsday scenario for the National Party. Never has a Prime Minister lost confidence in their most vocal supporter so publicly and so quickly. One with a whole heap of influence with his core base of voters. And sure, the hardcore, dyed blue in the rinse supporters will find ways to justify Luxon's approach. But there is a heap of others out there who will be paying attention to what Hosking is saying and starting to worry, even if they're buried in a super secret underground bunker somewhere.